Get ready for adventure. Islands of it, man. From the studios to Volcano Bay, this is the Universal Joint, a podcast devoted to all things Universal with your host, Jim Hill and Dustin Fuhs.
Welcome to the Universal Joint podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill and my co-host, Dustin Fuhs, and I are recording this podcast on Wednesday, October 2nd. I hate to start a show on a depressing note, but you forwarded to me this story out of USA Today about, well, do you want to explain about this Universal team member?
Yeah, so it's everywhere. It's on every sort of local and national, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. So what's happened is there was a Universal team member who was fired because during a meet and greet at the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort, they were dressed as Gru. So they were friends with Gru, portraying Gru during, and that's Despicable Me, while working at a character breakfast.
Yeah.
So this was back March 23rd. Mm-hmm. We don't know, we're going to classify him as an idiot at this point.
That works. That works.
He basically went ahead and deliberately formed the OK symbol with his fingers on his right hand, while on the left shoulder of a 7-year-old autistic biracial girl.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the OK symbol, especially in situations like this, takes on a weird racial connotation. Evidently, if you hold the index finger and the thumb in a certain way, it forms a P. And if you extend the other three fingers out, it forms a W, which somehow in today's world, that's now perceived as a symbol for white power. And,
Yeah, it was definitely an awkward thing. And I think one of the comments that we've seen online was the fact of, oh, it was a mistake. It was something like that. And actually, you brought up a really good parallel with this, idea of, oh, this was a mistake.
Well, that's what I initially thought. It like somebody's misinterpreting. We live in very sensitive times. And I don't know how many of you remember April of 2004, where there was a Disney cast member who was actually arrested. They played Tigger in the parks, and this 13-year-old girl and her mom went to guest relations and said that they had been groped in a meet and greet at one of the Disney parks. And Disney reached out to the Orange County Sheriff, and they took this cast member away. And it wasn't till August, right? This actually made it to court, Dustin? And
yeah, August. It looks like it was updated August 4th, 2004.
Right. And I remember from the court case, because Disney didn't want Tigger to be in court, but they wanted to show how this costume, it was very difficult to see inside of it, to see where your hands are placed or that sort of thing. They actually, the costuming department of Walt Disney World painted a Tigger outfit solid black and then put a performer in it in court and just explained that, through these eyes, through, where the eyes are positioned, they said, this is all I can see. And so, if I accidentally touched this 13-year-old girl in an inappropriate way, it was unintentional. So that case got dismissed. Whereas this family at this character breakfast at Lowe's Royal Pacific Hotel, they have a cell phone video of their daughter meeting with Gru and a minion. And will you describe it, Dustin?
It was a conscious decision by this team member, the person who was portraying Gru, to change from putting their hand on the shoulder to all of a sudden putting this symbol up. You can actually tell because the character goes from hand on shoulder to, you can see the conscious decision of just putting the symbol out there. And I think that was where everyone has decided that there's accidents, and then this was not an accident, which is why Universal Orlando Resort took the appropriate response and fired the individual.
And more to the point, they released this statement. This is Tom Schroeder, the VP of Communications, put it out. We never want our guests to experience what this family did. This is not acceptable, and we are sorry, and we are taking steps to make sure nothing like this happens again. We can't discuss specifics of the incident, but we can confirm that the actor no longer works here. We will remain in contact with the family and will work with them privately to make this right. I'm glad to be able to share that part of the story. But, geez, I mean, think about how families save for years to have this sort of vacation experience in Orlando, and some bozo in a suit thinks, well, I'm going to be funny, cute, or edgy, or slip something in here. And I think the USA Today story was talking about the fact that here's the little girl who wants to take the photos of her time with Gru in for show and tell, and the family's like, no, you can't do that. So,
yeah.
Kind of breaks your heart. Let's go from real-life monsters in today's world to make-believe monsters who thankfully only live on the big screen or in theme park attractions. And I'm, of course, talking about all the dinosaurs found in the Jurassic World films. Is it just me, Dustin, or is NBC Universal working overtime right now to keep the Jurassic World franchise front of mind? Well, first of all, did you see Battle at Big Rock, the film that debuted on FX last week and I guess now is available for downloading on JurassicWorld.com?
Yeah, it was breathtaking. It was something that when you said, you need to watch this, I was like, oh, okay. And it was something that, just my recommendation for anyone, just check it out online. And that way you'll know what we're talking about and why it's so impactful within the universe.
And without giving too much away, I wonder how many little girls are going to ask for crossbows for Christmas this year. So that arrives. And let's remember, we are 20 months out from Jurassic World 3. And yet we just had news drop earlier this week about folks from the Jurassic Park films who are coming back for Jurassic World 3.
And it was really fun to see how they made the announcement. Colin Trevorrow was talking with Laura Dern on stage and basically said, it would be really great if I got a chance to come back, but I want to bring my friends with me. So it was really fun to see the idea of not just Jeff Goldblum, because he made an appearance on the last
Fallen Kingdom.
Exactly. And now Sam Neill, who they've all kind of interspersed in the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World franchise. Like Sam Neill was in the third one, which most people don't remember Jurassic Park 3. All you have to do is go to the bargain bin at Walmart. And then you have the idea that these characters are being brought back into a world that they helped create, but also helped destroy. It'll be fun.
You were just pointing out that it's not just Sam and Laura and Jeff that are coming back, but the kids?
Yeah, so according to reports, Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards, most people won't know them by name, but they will definitely remember the kids from the original Jurassic Park, Lex and Tim. And there's been talk about bringing them back as well. Now, granted, they're no longer kids, to the extent that Lex actually just celebrated, or Ariana Richards just celebrated her 40th birthday. Thanks for making me feel old.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who else they can bring back into Jurassic World 3 and how they're going to kind of adapt this other world, other Jurassic Park into this cast.
Now, speaking of adapting Jurassic World, a brand new Jurassic World-based enterprise has been launched out into the world, and this is the Jurassic World Live Tour, which had its premiere at the Schottenstein Arena in Columbus, Ohio, late last month. And this one, I have to say, Dustin, fascinates me because it's a collaboration between Universal Brand Development and Feld Entertainment. Now, you were just talking about Feld is doing this with Universal because of its relationship with Disney. How many different shows did they do for,
Well, we were going through, so it's, they've got Monster Jam, they've got Disney on Ice, they've got Disney Live, Marvel Universe Live, Sesame Street Live, Trolls Experience, but most people don't remember, and if you do, all the power to you, Feld was behind the Ringling Brothers Circus. Yeah. So it's a weird little, going back in time to see how this company has basically owned and operated this arena show playground for such a long time that, the things that they're producing right now, they used to do other things.
Yeah. When they got out of the circus business, all of these arenas suddenly had holes in their schedules, and the Feld organization had all of these employees that they needed projects to work on. So the way they describe the show, it features a herd of life-size dinosaurs, some of them 40 feet long. They'll be coming to life through a mix of sophisticated animatronics and performer-operated suits, which, I'm sorry, Dustin, that sounds very familiar to me. Like, say, Walking with Dinosaurs, the arena show, familiar?
Yeah, it's all you have to do is go on YouTube and do a little search, and you'll be like, oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah, I mean, and that show dates all the way back. The very first one originated in Australia back in January of 2007, and as recently as December of last year, 2018. Yeah, they were in the SSE Arena at Wembley in London. So Walking with Dinosaurs is still a thing, still out there. And here comes Jurassic World Live Tour. Thanks to the use of a state-of-the-art projection map system, if you're attending a presentation of Jurassic World Live Tour, it'll feel like you're right there on Isla Nublar. So I'm hoping that we have some Universal Joint listeners out there who managed to make it to the show, because as we're recording this, the show's now at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. It then leaves for there for the Times Union Center in Albany. It's there October 10th through the 13th, and then continues on to Buffalo, and late October it's at the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. So we've already had a pretty crazy year Jurassic World wise. Yeah. We had the Jurassic World The Ride open at Universal Studios Hollywood. I think you were the one who came across that trademark for the Velocicoaster, the new thrill ride that's already under construction at Islands of Adventure, or right down by the waterfront there, by the lagoon. But
yeah, and we'll get to see that in about a month. But it's interesting walking through that area, and all the folks who are incredibly good at documenting construction. I have done, especially over on YouTube, they've done a great job of just showcasing the different angles and the different construction speeds, where there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes before something like this can go vertical. And we're seeing that actually on the West Coast, and where there's really nothing to talk about until we start hearing things through official channels, but the Nintendo stuff going vertical in the backlot. Right now, it's just one of those things where you look and you're like, oh, there is a structure coming to life right in front of us. And folks team members who work at Universal Studios Hollywood are like, yeah, it's been ongoing for a number of years now. And it's because there's so much planning that goes into it. So
absolutely.
We still don't know what's going to happen with the Velocicoaster, but as soon as Universal flicks that switch and says, here's everything, here's the POV that we've come up with on the computer, here's the wording, here's how we're going to describe the ride vehicles, it'll be fun to see how Jurassic Park can compete with Jurassic World in that same section, or if they just call it all Jurassic World.
Yeah, we still don't know about whether or not that rebranding of this specific land of Jurassic or Islands of Adventure is in the work. And again, the irony is that if we look ahead to 2020, we have Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, that animated series for Netflix. And I wonder, Dustin, as we stand here and see all this stuff coming at us, by the time June 2021 rolls around and we finally, Jurassic World has arrived in theaters, is all of this stuff going to have whet our appetite, or are we going to be like, I'm good, I'm full, I don't actually need to see your movie. I've seen so much Jurassic World stuff at this point that, let me guess, the dinosaurs eat somebody, So, speaking of looking ahead to the future, we have talked repeatedly about the Epic Universe, the Universal Orlando's fourth theme park, which, based on what the Orlando Business Journal just reported, I guess got a little bit bigger, right? They did a land purchase, is that correct, over the last couple of days? Or
Yeah, so it looks like a new permit was filed with the state to show that Universal is preparing for stormwater needs of the future theme park site. We're building a theme park in Florida. Stuff like that happens.
Okay.
But what they're doing is Orange County is working with Universal to fund an estimated $250 to $300 million on a 1.7 mile extension of Kirkman Road between Carrier Drive and Universal Boulevard. So this will have 9 travel lanes, 2 dedicated bus lanes.
That's honestly not a surprise given what they've got set up from the, again, it's, what are they calling the main part of the, it's North Campus, right? North Campus, and then mid campus or middle campus. But yeah, they use the buses to take folks from the North Campus, the main resort with City Walk and Islands and studios, over to Endless Summer. And again, I keep hearing from folks who are staying at Endless Summer that it takes them less time from the transportation hub to get back to their hotel. A lot of these folks have tried Cabana Bay. And they're like, I'm getting back to my hotel room faster at Endless Summer on the other side of I-4 than it took me to get back to Cabana Bay.
But what was interesting is this next thing. So the 2 dedicated bus lanes, that makes sense. But bike lanes?
Well, again, this is, we live in a green world, and you can actually go to the website. Universal is green. This is how you earn those tax credits. Now, pivoting back, okay, so that's work that's being done now. There's no solid info yet on an opening date for the 4th park, but it's bubbled up from a couple of different sources that 2024 looks quite likely. And so the question then is, well, what's in Park 4? What ride shows and attractions are in the mix? And a couple of times now we've heard that How to Train Your Dragon, that there's going to be a How to Train Your Dragon land in Epic Universe. And that sounded like a great idea till How to Train Your Dragon Hidden World came out this past summer, Dustin, which I don't know if you got to see it during its run in the theaters. It's recently come out on Blu-ray and DVD, but that movie ends with all of the dragons leaving Berk and literally going to the hidden world, which is this. Can only be accessed through this hole in the ocean that then takes you into this dragon-friendly cave space at the center of the earth. And that does kind of put you in an interesting spot if you're somebody who's working at Universal Creative, because it's like, okay, there are no dragons left in the world. How do we build, an exciting time about going to Berk if there are no dragons left? And you tripped over an interesting copyright that I think kind of explains that.
Yeah, so it's a DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming. So when we did that, the deep dive under Homecoming, and apparently it's been discussed a little bit over the last few months, but How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming is an upcoming holiday special. That'll be released in late 2019. It actually goes back to February 12th of 2019 when Jay Baruchel dropped that there is a hint of a holiday short in an Instagram story. So it was basically an 8-second clip of him in the sound booth recording lines about a Snaggletog pageant. And then in June of 2019, at the Annecy Film Festival, there was a confirmation that a holiday special was coming to fans. Dean DeBlois, he talked about all of this information coming out, but the interview was in French. But the English translation was apart from perhaps a special episode for the holiday season. There is, to my knowledge, no other project in development.
You have your How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming. And I can't really get into great detail here, but if you folks understand that the conceit of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is that if when you walk through the arch and enter Hogsmeade Village, or when you go through the wall there and you're in Diagon Alley, you're there the one day that these are open to Muggles. In fact, that's the whole story behind that sign in Hogsmeade Village about mind the spell limit.
Yes.
If you somehow do the wrong bit of magic in the Wizarding World, it will revert back to the old version of the Lost Continent with the Royal Oak Tavern and Merlin Wood. So don't do that, folks. That would be bad.
Although we would get the dueling dragons back.
Well, that's an interesting point. But speaking of dragons, supposedly the conceit with the version of Burke that they're going to be building at Epic Universe is the notion of, yes, the dragons have gone off to the hidden world, but sometimes some of them come back to visit with us. In fact, that's kind of the workaround. Remember, if any of you who saw The Hidden World, when the movie starts, Burke has been overrun with dragons. There were literally hundreds of them there. Just replicating that's just not going to be physically possible in a theme park environment. But if you happen to be there on a day, well, oh, a couple of them came back. Hey, would you like to get your picture taken with Toothless or his friends? They're right here.
Please buy merch. Please. Here's some merch. Have fun.
And speaking of things coming back, when we get back from this commercial break, we are going to have something truly special for all of you Halloween horror fans out there.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists like Olu Shei are working to build the best sports viewing experience.
Some of my favorite moments throughout my life are watching sports with my dad. Now I work at Comcast as part of the team that created our AI highlights technology, which uses AI to detect the major plays in a sports game.
And now, millions of sports fans will never miss a moment. Visit ComcastCorporation.com/sports to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
I know that when people do Halloween Horror Nights at the Universal Orlando Resort, they tend to concentrate on the mazes and the scare zones inside of Universal Studios Florida, which is understandable. They're great. They do some wonderful work there. But I'm going to make a weird suggestion, folks. If you do this year's event, especially if you're a Stranger Things fan, you have to make plans to get over to the Cabana Bay Resort. Dustin, have you heard about what they're doing over there?
Yeah, I am incredibly excited for it. It looks like what they're doing is bringing Stranger Things into a themed pop-up at the resort. Mm-hmm. So you can get your picture taken with, what is it? So it's in the Byers family room, which is great.
Well, if you remember from the first season of the show, where the mom was basically communicating with the son through Christmas lights that were on top of pieces of paper with ABCD and numbers and that sort of thing. But they've replicated the living room. You can actually sit on the couch as the Christmas lights behind you, I think spell out Happy Halloween Horror Nights or something to that effect. If, on the other hand, you're a fan of the third season, you can actually get behind the counter at the Scoops Ahoy, that cheesy ice cream parlor that was in the mall.
I've seen some of the photos from this, and oh my God, this is hilarious. This is just great.
Yeah, that hat that does not work for most heads. Anyway, speaking of food, if you're, and forgive me, this is just too good a piece of PR writing not to use. Okay. If you're up for late bites after a night full of frights, you should head over to the Cabana Bay Bayliner Diner, the food court there at this moderate resort. Because what's interesting, on the nights that Halloween Horror Nights is being held, they're holding Bayliner Diner open till it sort of keys off of when the event closes. Sometimes it stays open at 2, sometimes it stays open at 3. You can head over there and, hang out with your pals and look back on the evening that you just spent at Halloween Horror Nights while getting something to eat.
That was really funny with the 4 late bites.
Yes.
After a night full of, that's, $10 right there. Whoever created that is just like, good on you, PR.
All right. Now, speaking of Halloween Horror Nights, folks, do Dustin and I have a trick or treat for you this time? Given that this is the 29th year that this hard ticket event has been presented at the Universal Orlando Resort, well, I thought you folks might want to know what was it like to be at the very first event. which was held back in October of 1991. So I got on the phone earlier this week with a very good friend, and, well, here's a recording of that call.
Mr. Schneider, always a pleasure to talk with you. I always learn so much about theme park history whenever we chat.
Funny, I was going to say exactly the same to you.
All right. Well, Ron, let's just jump into it now. Okay, so the very first Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Florida, again, I keep getting the name wrong here. Very first one was called Fright Nights, right? And
yep.
Held during the theme park's second year of operation, 1991, rather than the fall of 1990, which was, of course, right after Universal Studios Florida first opened in June of that year. So why did they wait a year for the first Halloween event?
Well, the park operations had their hands full just getting the park up and running. As everybody seems to know, the opening day, most of the major attractions were not working reliably. They had a lot of dissatisfied guests and a long line outside of guest relations asking for refunds. Everybody got free tickets so they could come back a second time. The thing is, I was creative supervisor for the celebrity lookalikes, and my people were out on the streets and having a ball.
Well, speaking of which,
basically we were left alone.
It's the summer of '91. I think you said it was July, and you get a call from somebody high up in MCA Recreation, the folks who are in charge of the Universal theme parks. Who was that you talked with?
My mentor, Neil Miller, was the head of entertainment for Universal Studios Florida at the time. I got called away from my trailer, where I was creative supervisor of the celebrity lookalikes, and he said, we're going to do a Halloween event for 3 nights, and we need a couple of shows written. And he knew that I had a background in theme parks, and so he asked me to if I could come in and become, for the time being, I was going to become a kind of staff writer for the Halloween project. And so I did some banners for New York area, and I was going to contribute to some dialogue for the haunted house that was going to be in the Jaws queue. And there were 2 show ideas that had been handed down from Jay Stein, the president of MCA, that he wanted something over at the Bates Motel. The Bates Motel at that time was right next to the Hard Rock Cafe, and he wanted something in a little space between the Bates hotel building and the Hard Rock, that there was a little open space there by a sidewalk, and he wanted to have a graveyard with celebrity headstones there, and he wanted to have like a guided tour there, and they wanted something along the lines of a chainsaw massacre in New York, and those are the 2 assignments I got.
This is July. You have 3 months to deliver this, and you do have, a couple of aces. As you mentioned, you had the Bates Motel, which, kind of interesting. They had built both the Psycho House, a recreation of the Psycho House. In fact, I remember, didn't they have to, because when they bought the Universal Studios property, it was ridiculously flat, so they had to mound up all of this earth just to create a hill to put the Psycho House on. And then below the Psycho House, they then built the Bates Motel. And this was used, I want to say, in 1990 to film Psycho 4, right?
That's right. This is the set for Psycho 4.
Okay. So, all right, you've got those to work with. You've got these physical plants. But again, you mentioned that, what Jay had in mind was, sort of a celebrity graveyard off to the side. So you do a first pass, you send that out to Hollywood, and what happens?
Well, my idea was to, I went out and scoped out the area. And this little sidewalk area, we had the capacity for maybe 40 people. There was a little area that we could do a graveyard. I thought, hey, I'll stick Beetlejuice out there talking about the graves. That'll be funny. And if you look straight up, in front of you, there was the Bates Mansion looming on the hill in front of us. And I thought I needed some kind of big finish for this thing, so I thought I'll run a cable from Mother's window on the front of the building down behind the crowd, and for the finale of the thing, I'll have a dummy of Mother Bates come sliding down the cable, maybe put a tape recorder in with the sound of screams, and send that sailing over the audience's head and give them a nice fright. So I put this together in a treatment, and I sent it off to Neil Miller, he sent it off to Jay Stein, and it came back motel and make it a song that would be a commercial for the motel. And so I turned that in to Neil, and Neil sent it to Jay, and Jay came back with make it bigger. And so I was looking around for a way to make this thing as big as possible. And finally I went back to Neil. I said, look, can I have the whole motel? Can I have the parking lots? Can we move the show out in front of the hotel? We could build a great big graveyard there, and I could put a couple of other show elements in there. You know, we were sticking the Blues Brothers and everything because they were such a strong attraction. And we had a wonderful pair of guys with Dan Meisner and Keith Colby who were just flawless at the Blues Brothers. And I said, let me put this in the show. And he didn't even bother sending it to Jay. Neil said, let's do this. So I started thinking as big as I possibly could. And this is the way that the show started.
This was never intended to be a performance area. This was a movie set, you know, for Psycho 4, and you had the Psycho house in the background. So, you know, it's one thing when you set up a venue for shows that are going to happen all the time, but for something like this that's only supposed to happen for 3 nights, I mean, you had to schlep in, temporary bleachers that were then set up in front of the Bates Motel. Likewise, you're kind of in a Hippocratic Oath situation, you know, in that, you know, the old, you know, first do no harm, because, you know, once this event is over, the Bates Motel still has to be in place for guests to be able to see it when they come and visit Universal Studios Florida. But you made 2 very interesting requests of the folks at the park in regard to graves in front of the Bates Motel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, one of the ideas I had was that Beetlejuice would, of course, make his appearance coming out of the ground, and I wanted to do something with a chainsaw-wielding maniac that we would kill several times, and the last time I wanted to blow him up, so we really finished him off good. So I went to the people who were in charge of the grounds and all the technical things, and I made all sorts of demands, like you say, for lighting and sound effects and staging, and I said, listen, can I have 2 tunnels that will run from inside the motel down to right in front of the audience? Actually, it was one tunnel that kind of branched off into a second grave, but there were 2 open graves in front of the audience. They couldn't see down into them very well. And when we had our cast inside, Beetlejuice and our chainsaw-wielding maniac could get to those graves or get out of those graves very easily. And these became a major show element and really helped the show. The amazing thing to me at the time was no matter what I asked for, these wonderful people, Tim Scapielli was our tech god who oversaw all of this, and they went out there and just turned that motel into a performance venue like you think.
Wow. And did you have a new boss at that point? I want to say Ron Bension?
Yeah, Ron was being groomed as the new president of MCA Attractions at the time. I think this is what was going on. Ron was actually my boss back when I was a Universal Tour Guide in 1976 in California. Suddenly, here he is sitting on the bleachers next to me at one of the final dress performances. And Ron had the temperament of a Universal executive. And not a lot of smiles from Ron. So he's been over to me. We're watching the show with Norman Bates and all the characters, all the jokes about Psycho, and he leans over and says to me, you know, nobody's going to get this. Nobody remembers who Norman Bates was. And I said, Ron, half a mile from here, we've got the Alfred Hitchcock Art of Making Movies attraction, which is entirely built around Norman Bates. And the Psycho film, I think that this thing might go over well, as indeed it did.
It says so much about this show that, you know, here we are some 28 years later and we're still talking about this thing. Can you sort of do a Reader's Digest version of what this you know, initial Graveyard review was like?
Glad to. The thing that I've always believed about theme parks is you deal creatively with what your operational realities are. So whatever you take, whatever you've got that's there, you embrace it creatively. And so I had the Blues Brothers, I had the Bates Motel, I had a wonderful actor named Paul Sanders who looked a lot like Anthony Perkins, and I just used the resources that we had. So it started with the Bluesmobile comes wheeling around from the back of the motel. Jake and Elwood are in the driver's seat, but of course they're broken down, as always happens in these situations. So the car is being pushed by their 2 backup singers, 2 beautiful girls world, the room between them, room number 2 is where we have our chainsaw-wielding maniac who's blasting heavy metal music and disrupting everything. Norman comes out after everyone's checked into their rooms and welcomes the audience and points out that they have set up a graveyard in the parking lot in front of the Bates Motel, and we call this our Just Say No graveyard. It's filled with the headstones of rock and rollers who didn't know when to say when. So we had a John Belushi graveyard there, and we had anybody who Keith Moon, anybody who OD'd or died ignominiously we had a gag graveyard set up there. And Beetlejuice comes up out of the ground and introduces himself. He gives Norman a hard time and shows everybody around the different graves. He gets Elvis Presley, crawls up out of the ground, and sings, well, since my life has ended, I need a new place to dwell. It's under the stairs with Mama Bates at the Bates Motel. And we do a whole commercial there. Mother Bates comes out to deliver towels to the girls in room number 1. Of course, it's Norman dressed up as Mother Bates. And actually, we got to use the costumes that were used in Psycho 4, the movie, as well as the costumes that were used in the Alfred Hitchcock show. Wow. So we had everything right there. Didn't have to spend much money. Then the Blues Brothers are being disturbed by the maniac in the next room. They go out to tell him to turn down the music. We wind up, Norman takes a knife and stabs the guy into the chest several times. Big blood bag comes out, and that's the first time we kill him. Second time is when the Blues Brothers go out to do a concert for the people in the parking lot, because they're doing that in lieu of paying for their rooms. And but as they start to sing, the music blasts up again from room number 2, and Jake takes a shotgun and blows the guy away a second time. Again, big explosion, blood bag, and he gets back in his room. The Blues Brothers do a couple of numbers, and we have the 2 girls that came with them are dancing back up, and I had Mother Bates. She hears the gunshot. She comes out and watches this. She sees the 2 girls dancing and gets caught up in it, winds up singing and dancing back up with the Blues Brothers, which is my favorite gag in the whole show. Oh, great. And the Blues Brothers finish, and as they finish, the Chainsaw Maniac comes back a third time, this time attacking the audience with a chainsaw, threatening the audience with a chainsaw. So they trick him into getting over to one of the graves. They push him in, and we had a massive gas generator behind the headstone, and there was a beautiful explosion. Beetlejuice throws a stick of dynamite in and says, "It's showtime." And there's a massive explosion. That was the end of the show.
You guys were basically forced. I mean, it was a 3-performance schedule per night schedules, I remember, and you were forced because the line was so long and there was such demand to add a 4th show that night, right?
Oh, yeah.
Here's the show that people are going absolutely nuts over, that you worked so hard on, Ron, and yet you never got to see it with an audience. And can you explain why?
Well, I saw the first performance. I got to say that. But over in the New York area, we had a show with Truckosaurus, and they needed someone to narrate that, and so I got called away and wound up narrating the Truckosaurus shows in New York. So I only got to see 1 or 2 performances of the Bates Motel show, but thank God we had this wonderful video. One of the girls who worked with us shot from up in the tech booth, and it just recently reappeared in YouTube. I guess we'll post a link, but also if you do a Google search, YouTube search, it's just for Blues Brothers Beetlejuice, you'll wind up coming to the video, and it really turned out pretty good. Given
that the Universal Studios Florida's Halloween Horror Nights became famous for its Bill and Ted Halloween Adventures, but this show that you created, Ron, really creates the template for that. And one of the things that it did especially well, I mean, again, you describe the maniac being knifed in the chest by Norman Bates or being shot with a shotgun by Elwood Blues, but again, it's cartoon violence. In fact, that's the thing that it's very stylized, very cartoony. And in fact, I love how you kind of settled on that moment. Can you talk about the search for the proper non sequitur?
So at some point we were thing out. We're blocking it, and I have the shotgun, but I wanted something. I wanted to put a comic twist on the shotgun. It comes out of left field. Suddenly Jake's got a shotgun in his hand. He's going to blow this guy away. And I said, there has to be something that he's going to shout, something just before he shoots that is, like I said, a non sequitur. I called the cast together, and I said, we need something for him to shout here. It should be a non sequitur. It should be recognizable, and it should be funny in some way. And about an hour later, I came up with it myself. And so when he picks up the shotgun, points it at the maniac, and screams, "It's rabbit season!" and throws him away.
And of course, that's a great quote from the Chuck Jones cartoon, rabbit seasoning. And again, I love that it's a cartoon quote and helps set up the sort of cartoony feel, which of course, because you got Beetlejuice in the mix series, you're halfway home anyway. But speaking of great individual gags, can you please talk about, I mean, again, you mentioned at the top of this interview how you did some incidental writing on the one maze that they had up and running for this, the very first Fright night. But again, they constructed it in and around the queue of the Jaws the Ride over in Amity. And I think you mentioned that there was one particular Universal employee who did an amazing job with the space. I'm blanking the name here, but there we go. But even then, though, it needed a button. It needed something to just put it over the top, and so they came to you. Can you talk about what the gag you settled on to sort of put the button on this one?
Well, Tim had done an amazing job. We didn't have an IP. It was all just Tim doing research and building something that was going to give the guests personal experience. The last room that you came into was a massive cage. You walked around the perimeter of this cage, very tight quarters. So you were very close to the people inside. And we had all the classic Universal monsters walking around. I even had somebody dressed up like Tim Seppielli with a cowboy duster and the cowboy hat. But I wanted to put something in there that was going to be funny. And as Universal was always doing back then, we wanted to get a little dig in at the neighbors. So I had this very cute lady who was dressed up in a little girl's outfit, wearing mouse ears, and carrying a map to the Magic Kingdom. And she was running around in this room with the strobe going and the music playing, and she would be asking the guests for directions to get to the Magic Kingdom.
Oh, that just kills me. Now, looking back at this first Fright Night, is there anything else that sticks out to you about this particular event?
The fact that it was completely us. It was all of us in Florida working together to create something out of nothing, out of plywood and costumes that we had and talent that we had, and just dealing with it all creatively.
Let's not forget, you wrote a second show for the first Fright Night. Can you talk a little bit about how you delivered on Jay Stein's request for a Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah, he wanted some kind of scripted show in New York. And how do you script a Chainsaw Massacre? So I thought to myself, I have to do something that has a beginning, middle, and end, something that's going to be gross, yet be funny, and really surprise the audience. And it couldn't be too big. So I came up with this argument that's happening between a husband and wife who are coming out of the Italian restaurant, and she's giving him a hard time, and she starts humiliating him in front of him.
I love that it's so dark and funny, but it plays on the audience's expectations. Anyway, Mr. Schneider, I could sit here all day and listen to theme park history stories like this from you. And speaking of which, people are actually going to have the chance to do that relatively soon. You've got an event coming up?
Yes, on this October 12th and 13th. Retro Magic is the event from the Retro Walt Disney World people. The event that we're having on Saturday night to see the new Epcot Lagoon show is already sold out, but on Sunday, the 13th, at the Contemporary Resort, we've got a day full of guest speakers. There are tickets still available for that. We've got Bob Gurr, we've got Rolly Crump, we have Tom Nabby, Tom Sawyer from Disneyland. I'm going to be talking about Dreamfinder and Mickey's Birthday Land. We got a whole day of music and memories with all these wonderful people. Tom Morris is going to be speaking. And if you go to the Retro WDW website or just Google Retro Magic, you get to the site and tickets are still available for the event.
That sounds like I can't miss. Thank you so much for making the time today to talk to us about the very first Fright Night.
Thank you, Jim.
Wasn't that great? These are the exact sorts of stories that Dustin and I intend to share with event attendees who take part in our Holidays at Universal event, which is going to be held this year on site there on November 15th through the 18th. Now, over the course of this 4-day-long event, we're going to be taking theme park fans on a walking tour of Universal Studios Florida and Universal Studios Islands Adventure. We're going to be doing seasonal-specific stuff like taking part in a presentation of Universal's Holiday Parade featuring Macy's, not to mention taking in a performance of Grinchmas Holiday Spectacular over at Islands. Dustin and I will also be sharing all sorts of behind-the-scenes stories about the creation of the Universal Orlando Resort. Plus, you're going to get to sit in on a live recording of the Universal Joint podcast.
So how's this? If you tweet the keyword Elwood, we just picked up that keyword off the great Universal Fright Night story that Rob Schneider just shared with Jim. Tweet that keyword Elwood to @JimHillMedia as a direct message. We will then enter you into a drawing for a 3-night stay for 2 people at the Lowe's Sapphire Falls Resort at Universal Orlando for the Universal Joint Experience, the podcast event that we're doing from November 15th through until the 18th.
Now, please be certain it's a direct message to @JimHillMedia. Otherwise, you won't be entered in this drawing.
Now, please note that the winner is responsible for their own travel accommodation. So you have to pay for your flight down there.
More importantly, none of this would be possible without the help of the kind folks at Storybook Destinations. So please head over to the StorybookDestinations.com/DisneyDish, where you can learn even more about what we've got planned for this on-site event, which again is being held November 15th through the 18th.
The drawing for this contest will be held Wednesday, October 16th, which is just around the corner. We'll tweet our lucky winner, who will then be awarded tickets to the parks and a hotel room for the length of the Universal Joint event, plus entry into all of the tours and the live podcast. All they'll have to do is find their own way down to Universal Orlando Resort.
Now, the official rules for this contest are posted over at JimHillMedia.com. If you have any technical questions about the contest, and again, the keyword for today's show is Elwood. And speaking of seasonal shows at the Universal Park, geez, Dustin, we did it again. We got Ron Schneider to talk about the very first Fright Night at Universal Orlando, but never once talked about any of the mazes of the scare zones that can be found at this year's event. I guess we'll have to cover that on the next edition of the Universal Joint podcast. But until that show goes live, where else can folks find you online?
So I'm over at stepstomagic.com. It's Universal and Disney trip planning, advice and ideas and things you can do while you're down at Walt Disney World and Universal. I also have another podcast, so it's the We Like Theme Parks podcast. Basically just a few guys getting together and talking about how they like theme parks. So that's where I'm at. And I know that you're up to, 276 podcasts on your end?
I think at this point, what's the same number as pi? We got Disney Dish with Len Testa. We got Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. We got Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Zayer. The Marvelous Disney Show, which is I do with Aaron Adams. And we're also doing our I Want That show, which is about Disney merch, which, given that we're just a couple of days away from Triple Force Friday, that show's going to be long.
Yep.
Anyway, speaking of shows, folks, if you could do myself and Dustin a favor here, if you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend our shows, that helps us get additional eyeballs. Likewise, if you really, really, really like what we do here, head over to Bandcamp and subscribe. And I guess for now, that will do it, Dustin. Though, again, we have to get back together soon and get that Halloween Horror Night show recorded before this season ends. So
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll do then, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.
It's been groovy having you hang with us for the Universal Joint. Tune in again for this and other great podcasts found on the Jim Hill Media Network.